Hey guys, I'm back. It's been a little bit. Last week I was kind of like, well, I could do a pitch, but I didn't feel like I'd really fully fleshed out my idea, and I didn't want to just half-ass it because I knew what I've been running into a little bit is that I'll just kind of like, when I initially started these pitches with the Halloween ones and stuff like that, the idea was okay, we have to follow the last movie and connect it, in a better way, or follow whatever somebody else did, and just kind of like, okay, how are we going to make this work or make it better? And the Halloween ones worked really well because there's so many crazy timelines in Halloween, and then Friday and the Nightmare ones worked decently too. But I think with the Friday the 13th movies, there's not as many timelines so much. It just kind of is. There's not a lot of cohesive characters staying around. It's been their biggest issue. But so I've kind of fallen into the trap a little bit of outside of a few changes here and there. I feel like I'm just basically telling the whole movie all over again. And I'm not saying that these movies don't deserve to have that same flair to them. Like there's not a whole lot wrong with a lot of them, but in terms of what they are, they're just camp slashers. But I think I found myself in the trap of being like, oh, I'll just basically, here's a little thing I added to the story, but this is basically the same movie. And I don't want it to just be the same movie. There might be some of the same characters and continuing characters, but so I try to that's why I wanted to take a little break last week to kind of think on it a little bit this week. And then yesterday I had a sinus headache, so it was just like, I'll just wait. Anyway, so we're going to be today pitching Friday the 13th, A New Beginning, the 5th film in the franchise. So if you are new here, and if you are, hi, welcome. We are currently at 25 subscribers, but if you're tuning in today, hit that subscribe button, guys, if you like what you do. If you have other things, I also do movie reviews occasionally, or streaming series reviews. My wife will join me on here sometimes. We're doing stuff. I still am planning to watch The Eternals so that I can rank all the phases of the MCU. And maybe I'll talk about the DCU stuff that's coming up soon, the slate and all that stuff that was announced by James Gunn, because that's pretty exciting stuff. I'll talk about that another time. But yeah, and I've also done things about my life and my sketch group, Turbo Turkey Productions, and all that, which is how I named the channel, actually, because that's my sketch group name. And, occasionally I might throw a video here and there on that, but mostly what we're hearing is, recently, I'm just babbling, but recently, take a sip here. Raspberry Polar Express seltzer. Recently, this past October, I started doing these what if type pitches of what if you made this follow up to this movie. And I sort of was, I think with the Halloween ones, was going on the whole requel idea a little bit, the new word requel. Kind of remake, we're ignoring this film, we're following this film. And the Nightmare ones, I felt like I was kind of like, well, what if we just set it in that time, 80s, whatever the case. So I think that's kind of the same vein I'm going with here. I'm not trying to take these movies and do them today necessarily. Although you certainly could. But I'm just trying to do following the previous film. So that's what we're trying to do here. So at the end of the last one, the final chapter, like I said, I didn't rename these. The titles will pretty much still be the same unless we're creating a whole new movie or something. But yeah, so the last one, of course, very similar to the original final chapter. Tommy Jarvis, goes crazy and makes sure that motherfucker Jason Voorhees is dead. So he's dead. So interestingly enough, in this film, obviously, originally what happened in The New Beginning, of course, is that it's basically a copycat killer. Everybody thought it was just Jason back, and Tommy Jarvis is back and all that, and he's obviously had a lot of trauma from that experience, and he's at this camp. It's a camp area, but it's like a thing for troubled teens and stuff like that. And then basically, this one guy just snaps and hacks this heavy-set guy to death, and then basically, the Jason type killings start happening, and then at the end we find out it was this. This boy's dad, who was a paramedic on the scene, basically snapped and started using the Jason mask for, and the legacy to get his revenge on these bastards who killed his son. Amazingly, not killing the guy who actually, axed him to death. Which is what he's like. I'm just like, well, shouldn't he have gotten that guy? Well, I guess maybe he got killed off screen. Maybe I don't know. That was always a missing element that I thought like, well, I get snapping and like a lot of people that snap will just kill aimless people, but it's like you probably should have killed the guy who actually axed him with the axe. Axe and axe. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So that's kind of where the premise was for what they were doing. It got a lot of hateful reactions. I believe if it came out today, man, it would be all over Twitter or whatever. Well, people just being like, they destroyed it, and it's like, yeah, okay. But I think they really were in, and this is why I had to think about it too. They were in kind of a pinch because it's like, well, we really killed Jason. We literally called it the final chapter, It's kind of, how do we do a follow up to this if it's the final chapter? So it's like at that point, it's just like, well, we either have to reboot it, or we have to do a prequel, or we have to, or whatever the case, or ignore the events of what happened in the fourth one, So, I agree. I can understand their challenge. And of course, when people hated it, they brought Jason back as this zombie, basically. Which was another idea. But we're not going to actually bring Jason back yet either. He will show up, but I do want to at least play with this idea a little bit. Of this kind of thing with his mask. Now, the also question is, how did he get Jason's mask? It's like, was this the actual Jason mask? And I'm sure they might have talked about that in the movie. So anyway, the way I had Final Chapter end, I did have, of course, Trish survive and Tommy survive. But I also had Rob survive, the guy that was looking for his sister. Because I was like, I think I was a decent character. They shouldn't have killed him. So he lives in this universe. So I figure Rob and Trish hit it off and stuff like that, and they've probably, found about what his sister and stuff like that. I'm sure that, hopefully she was found and they buried her and all that stuff. And Tommy's been in and out of, psychiatrist's office and things like that, and people trying to help him, and he's still has these nightmares of Jason just coming back to get him and stuff, to get his revenge. And we would probably keep that opening thing with the Corey Feldman, in the rain and all that stuff. But yeah, this was still very much Tommy Jarvis's story and stuff like that. So we would open up kind of the same way, and then we get into this camp. And now, like I said, Trish and Rob will appear in the film, but they will be kind of, maybe we just have a conversation like she's talking to Tommy. He's like, Tommy, I think this would be good, just to get away, not be in these hospital type situations, but more just, getting out in the open, getting around other people and stuff like that. Because, he's been not really locked up, but he's been, seeing a lot of doctors and stuff after this crazy experience that he had killing this serial killer, Jason Voorhees. So yeah, obviously Tommy's very troubled and having nightmares and flashbacks. It was the 80s, so I don't know if medication was really the big thing then. Maybe it was. I don't know. I was a kid, so I didn't really know much about stuff like that at the time. But I'm sure that there might be some kind of medication that they had him on. So he's still very much into masks himself. Basically, he goes to this camp again, and, we'd still have Pam, and we'd still have Reggie, because that kid's awesome. And then the other rest of these meaningless characters. Now, I think what would happen, too, now I think he's having a little bit of trauma himself, because when he gets there, he's kind of like, oh my god, this is a camp. It's not Camp Crystal Lake. I agree. I think let's take it out of Crystal Lake for a little bit. But, like, basically, he's kind of, even still kind of being dramatic. He's like, he's right not being locked up in a room, like he's in freaking, Weston Hills, Nightmare on Elm Street. Go to the quiet room. Lock him in the quiet room for the night. God, I hate that woman. What a bitch. Sorry, wrong series, but, just a reference. But, yeah, so anyway, back to me. So he's still having kind of like, oh my god, we're at another camp, and even though they're telling him this is not Camp Crystal Lake, he's still kind of freaked out, because it's like, okay, it's gonna happen. And he's just freaking out. He's like, this is gonna happen all over again. It's gonna happen all over again. And then I would keep the thing with the guy with the axe just because that kind of gets into the psyche. Like, oh my God, is this guy Jason? Oh my God, this guy. But I think there should be this kind of like report from the cops or whatever saying, hey, like Jason's mask went missing. If someone took that mask, and so immediately they're going to be kind of investigating. The cops are going to be like, maybe this Jarvis kid. I mean, he's been seeing been in these hospitals, and he's been having this. It's like maybe he took the mask, And so I think we're going to kind of point it towards it. Oh, maybe Tommy's, the mask's controlling him or something like that. Not too supernatural, but like, that's what they're trying to think. Make it seem like Tommy's really there. Because they kind of played it a little bit like that anyway. But like, we're playing off the fact that Tommy's not right in the mind right now, much like Chris was in the third one. And so they're kind of like looking at him and, talking to Pam and the other guy that runs the place. And just saying, oh, I don't know about this kid. He's like, we noticed that before the mask went missing. Why? Who would take this a serial killer's mask other than some crazed fan or something like that? So they're kind of trying to figure out who took his mask because they don't know they don't know if it's just simple of like worship or if it's like, is this guy going to start like carrying things on? Well, obviously, the one guy snaps on the heavyset guy, eating his candy bar, and snaps and starts hacking him with a freaking axe, like loses it. So obviously, this is obviously not great trauma for for the rest of the kids either, but it's obviously definitely not great for Tommy, who just saw this guy get hacked up after seeing so many other people get hacked up by Jason. So immediately he's like, oh God, it's Jason, and he's having these kind of, flashbacks and freaking out and stuff like that. And so it's like they're trying to calm him down and stuff like that. And some people were, still taunting him and stuff like that, and of course he gets angry and lashes out because, Tommy Jarvis is a very emotional guy. We saw that as a kid. So anyway, so yeah, obviously they're still kind of figuring out, well, where the hell's Jason's mask? Why would someone take a serial killer's mask? So I would say also, like, just to play with it a little bit, that I'd say this mask itself maybe does have a supernatural element to it. And not that created Jason, because Jason was obviously already living, had come back from his drowning. But like, I'd say that like maybe that's its power over Roy. So everybody knows Roy's the killer already. People who watch it didn't know that, but like, Roy's the killer, obviously, still. But I would say rather than just being like a guy who's like, I'm going to take this mask and pretend I'm Jason, like maybe it actually, in his mind, he really thinks he's Jason. And this mask kind of takes him over a bit, Also makes him a little more invincible somewhat. Not invincible completely, but like, much like people in the Scream costume, they get the shit kicked out of them sometimes, and they're just totally fine. It's like, so it's like, I would say that there's an element there that like, it's sort of the mask sort of transferring to its new owner a little bit. And yeah, and even, play off the fact that Roy's kind of talking to himself a little bit. Maybe maybe a little bit more of the paramedic. Let's get to know Roy a little bit more. Let's just have him, because he's just kind of there, periodically, here and there in the movie. So you don't really, that's why no one really suspects him. He's just a random paramedic guy. Why would he do this? But so I would say we'd kind of like see Roy kind of being a little off, maybe talking to himself a little bit. But still at the same time, they're just thinking, oh, he's just some paramedic guy who's, whatever. So, like, no one knows that this kid was his son, of course. So we play around a lot of things. This kills start happening again. They obviously lock the other guy up. But I would say that guy gets killed. And maybe in a prison cell or something like that. But, like, I would say that that's the first person Roy goes after, because that's the thing that makes sense. But then once he gets that kill done, gets revenge for his son there, he's like, wait. And I would say even like, now obviously we hadn't tied the hockey mask. It's too bad they didn't tie the hockey mask at all to Pamela Voorhees, because she didn't really wear a mask. She was just walking around in her awesome sweater and, turtleneck and killing people. So it's like, I would say it's a shame that we don't have that. But like maybe there's some kind of connection with this mask. Maybe Pamela Voorhees put some kind of curse on it or something. I don't know. We're getting into curses now. Oh no, we're going that far. It's Cult of Thorn. No, but not like that. But like there's something that really like is almost speaking to Roy in the same way that Jason's killing is speaking to Jason's voice in Pamela's head was telling her, kill them all. And so Roy's got a taste for the killing now. This is the first person he killed was the guy who killed his son. So at that point he's just vigilante. He's revenge. He's getting back. They killed my son. I got to kill him out. So yeah, that guy gets taken out. So that'll be our first kill. But then, like I said, Roy gets a taste for it. And he's got the mask, and the mask is really the darkness of Jason is really encompassing him. And so Roy starts killing all these people, killing all these teenagers and camp counselors and things like that. And unfortunately, the older brother of Reggie, who just damn enchiladas. Shit was funny. And the Randy Quaid knockoff character that they had in there with the motorcycle. And his crazy mom. We'll kill all them too. But yeah, so I would say, it comes down to a big showdown. Similarly, Tommy steps up to him and Roy falls to his death. And we see that, it was Roy. But meanwhile, what we don't show right away, we're not going to go the same ending that they did, which was that Tommy picks up the mask and it's in his drawer and he tries to kill Pam and all that stuff. We're not going to do that because, number one, that was kind of stupid. I don't think anybody really bought it. That's why they brought Jason back. Because we don't want that. That's dumb. It's probably the same reason why some people didn't like Halloween Ends. It's probably, when somebody else becomes a killer, it's just kind of it's just like, no, but our killer is this guy, It's like, it's not like Scream where it's like, okay, those killers are dead, now these other killers are, taking over. But it's, for Jason, it wasn't really a legacy thing. It wasn't a thing where it's like, we're passing the torch to another person to be Jason. This was just a guy who snapped, and that mask kind of overcome him. So, meanwhile, everybody's in the hospital. They're saying the same thing. Roy snapped, and he used this Jason legend. He stole the mask from the, he knew somebody in the forensic department or whatever, or whoever hangs on to dead serial killers' masks. I don't know. I don't know these law things. I was a theater major. So that's what I know. So rather than that, we kind of see the true new beginning is not Tommy Jarvis taking up the mask, but what happened with all these kills and wearing that mask is that it brought Jason back to life. So he's not necessarily zombie Jason here, like in Jason Lives. But what it did was it kind of resurrected the power, the evil inside the mask that took over Roy. Gave kind of sort of a little Freddy versus Jason thing where Jason's kills gave Freddy his power back. It's sort of the same thing a little bit, but it's Jason reliving his real new beginning. So Jason is alive, and and that will be more of the confrontation. There is that Tommy Jarvis will get out of the hospital, and then he'll just see Jason outside his window. And for a minute, he thinks it's just, it's just my mind playing tricks on me. But then Jason breaks through the window, and then that would be how we black out. Way I would do it there. And then you continue the next movie on with Tommy on the run. Maybe Pam and Reggie are there too, because I like Reggie. I think he was a nice kid. I think he could have continued on. And so I guess it would be sort of a double, at least another movie after this. Would be that not necessarily Jason Lives, or maybe it is Jason Lives, whatever you want to call it. That's a whole nother pitch. But then it would be kind of, continuing that Tommy Jarvis trilogy, and now the real Jason is back, so it kind of ties a little bit like Jason Lives, but without Tommy himself resurrecting Jason, and being this wormy zombie thing. So Jason's not wormy zombie thing. He's just kind of like the resurrection of the mask, and the kills brought him back to full power, and now he can, so in a sense, maybe he wasn't really dead. He was just kind of like Michael Myers in Halloween 4. He was just unconscious in a coma for a little while. They thought he was dead, but really, he was just resting. I'm not dead, I'm just resting. Anyway, So yeah, that would be how I'd end that movie. So Jason is again living, and then of course, next movie they would finally have a final showdown, and they would finally kill Jason, and that's a true final chapter, so to speak. So Jason is really dead, and they knew they have to destroy the mask as well. So they burned that thing to a crisp, but of course, someone's like, "Oh, I'm going to get this hockey mask too." Replica masks, oh no! But yeah, so that would be how I would go about that pitch. So obviously, the next time I do a pitch, we'll be following the actual New Beginning, and I will be playing off what they did with it, which was Tommy Jarvis becomes Jason essentially, which I wasn't a fan of, but that will be a nice challenge for me to have to come up with a pitch for. So that was my New Beginning, double movie, so to speak. That plays out similar to the New Beginning, but we get a little bit of a difference, a little bit more of a supernatural element going on for Jason and all that. Which, I mean, Jason already kind of had a supernatural element anyway, because he's drowned in a freaking thing and then he came back an adult. Who knows, right? So yeah. And then, yeah, I'd say maybe after that we've got, the next movie would also have Trish and that guy. The guy I mentioned earlier, his name. Rob. And I'd say that they were probably married at this point and all that, but they're just trying to help Tommy out and finally stop Jason once and for all. So that would be my kind of double pitch movie for that. And that is my pitch for a Friday the 13th New Beginning. That leads into one more movie. So, next time, like I said, I will be back with a pitch for the Jason Lives, or the follow-up to New Beginning, basically. The New Beginning follow-up. That's what I gotta make sure I do. I follow up the original movie and then do the pitch from that. So yeah, that's what I will do next time. So, probably later this week. If not tomorrow, definitely probably Monday or something like that. I'll do a pitch since I'll be off for the week. Resting the shoulder for the week. From work and stuff, so that'll be nice. A little staycation, get some cleaning done, all that good stuff. So cool, guys. Thanks. Hope you enjoyed this pitch. Good to pitch again, and like and subscribe if you like what you see. And I'm sure I'll be back with more fun stuff. Have a good night, guys.